Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. I'm your professor, Dr. Jake Patten. Welcome to SHS 367 Language Science, the science of language. I think you'll enjoy this class. I hope you do. I've put a lot of work into making it work for you, making it very accessible for an online class. The weeks are going to run from Wednesday to Tuesday instead of, typically from Sunday to Monday, Monday to Sunday, rather. And I think what this is going to be able to do is, no matter what your schedule is, there's going to be time for weekday or weekend crunch time for you. The weeks are going to be broken into two halves. And so there's going to be some light things due on Saturday at midnight, which if you are working during the week, it gives you one day of weekend and a little bit of your Friday evening, I guess. And if you're working during the weekend, it'll give you that front load time on the week to get that done. Then the rest of the stuff is going to be due Tuesday at midnight, and so then that gives you Sunday or Monday and Tuesday to finish that up. So hopefully that works for everybody's schedule. One of the things that's going to work that way are discussion boards. Now, I know, discussion boards are not everybody's favorite thing. Like, usually they're used poorly. I promise I won't use them every week just to use them to find ways to get you points. We'll use them in a better way. It's only going to be times when the discussion is actually something fun and relevant, right? So there will be other things that we'll come up with to do to get you points that aren't just like search for something to possibly talk about that you don't really care about. Let me give you one example. So at some point, I'm going to ask you to break conversational norms. So go up to somebody, break conversational norm. And then I want you to tell me about what happened when you broke that conversational norm. And it's usually hilarious. Maybe not for you or the person that you did it to, but for the rest of the class and me, it's going to be very funny. And you'll get to read everybody else's response. We'll get to read yours. And so that would be due on Saturday, and then on Tuesday what's due is a response to it, and I'm already looking forward to that one. I can't wait to see what rules you guys decide to break and the chaos that ensues. That'll be great. The discussions are going to happen using both Yellow Dig and Canvas discussion boards. Yellow Dig might be something new that you haven't used. There's a tutorial on Canvas, so you can take a look at it. But essentially, it's supposed to be kind of like a Facebook or kind of like a Twitter or something like that. I mean, it's fine, whatever. Like, the discussion boards tend to be just as good. The thing that's nice about this one is you can link other articles, or you can link, journal articles from scientific journals. You can link articles from news websites. So one of the things I might have you do is like find a relatively recent news article where something that you've learned in this class is relevant to the news and post it, and we'll talk about it. And again, hopefully it's something funny or something really interesting. So if it's something funny, or if it's something like politically controversial, people have a lot to say, and that is good, in at least for discussion boards. So Canvas discussion boards, we use those too, but those not for things where I'm going to want you to like link to a bunch of stuff. The Yellow Dig is really good for linking. Another thing that I want to do is try to keep this as close to an actual on-ground class as possible. And how I'm going to do that is I want you to ask me questions while you're listening to or watching the lecture videos. I know if you're driving or something or working, you can't do that, so you'll have to save them. But I'm going to post slides from my lectures on something called VoiceThread. What VoiceThread is it's just a way for you to comment on stuff. So what I want you to do is, if you're listening to the lecture, if you're watching the lecture, if you were in an on-ground class and you would want to ask a question, go to the VoiceThread that corresponds to that unit and ask the question, right? So VoiceThread will allow you to just type in a question. It'll allow you to record your voice. Presumably that's the voice in the VoiceThread. Or it'll allow you to do a video like this. Although maybe you won't have really cool illusions in your background. By the way, if you didn't know, this guy is the same size as this guy over here. If you can't see the whole picture, if I've got it too occluded. This guy is the same size as this guy, but the other perspective cues make it look like they're not the same size. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at those once or twice a week, maybe more often than that if there's a lot of discussion, and I'm going to answer them kind of off the cuff, as I would in a class. So you'll get like my answer from me. So we'll try to have it be more like an actual class. And this way, instead of just sending me an email with clarification, everybody in the class will be able to see the question that you ask and get information from the answer. One of the other things that I want to try is more of a podcast format to some of the lectures. Now, the reason I want to do that is because I know a lot of you are working. I mean, the reason why you take an online class is because you are busy. You might have kids, you might have jobs, both, multiple of any of those. And so maybe you can only really have time to listen while you're in the car, while you're at the gym, something like that. I love listening to podcasts in the car and the gym. It's fantastic, right? I've gotten to the point where like music occasionally is just like, I've heard my favorite song a million times and I need something more intellectually stimulating, and podcasts seem to fill that. So hopefully I can make podcast lectures that are as good as what you're currently listening to. If you're not currently listening to podcasts, you should be. What the heck? They're great. I guarantee there will be something that fills your interest, no matter from scholarly to absolutely not. There are tons of podcasts, about 30% of them are pretty good. And so I've looked into publishing these lectures like a podcast. And so if you have a podcast app that you use, you'll just have to subscribe to the class, put in a code that I'll put in Canvas. The podcast will also have show notes. Like if you listen to a podcast, they have show notes, and what those are images and links that go along with the topic that you can look at. For our purposes, I think it would be best if you take a look at, I'll put some infographics up, a couple images. So go ahead and take a look at those and then listen on your drive or on your workout or whatever, and then take a look at them again at the end. The structure is also going to have some video lectures from me. Some things aren't as conducive to podcast as other things, and so we're going to need some traditional video lectures. And then I'll also find some YouTube videos that might cover something, pretty well, better than why reinvent something if it's already perfect. So I'll give you some really good YouTube links, and then also there's some pop culture references that really work for the course too, and so I'll put links to those as well. So it should be pretty enjoyable, I hope. There's also a book. You can check out the details on Canvas, which you're probably watching this on Canvas, I'm guessing. So those details should be in the syllabus, and there's an announcement with it as well. It's a cheaper book, which is great, and I'll post specific readings in the syllabus as well. It's not, you don't have to read the whole thing. There's specific chapters and specific portions of chapters that I'll let you know when you need to focus on those and which ones they are. Now we'll talk about exams. We'll do exams on Canvas using something called the lockdown browser. What that does, it doesn't allow you to go other places on your browser while you're taking the exam. And then also, you have to have a webcam enabled because they're going to be watching you while you take the exam. It sounds a little weird. I think it's a little creepy, but it's it's one measure to make exams for the online courses a little bit more like exams for on-ground courses. What we had to do previously was time the exams so you had maybe a minute for each question or maybe less to be able to prevent people from like grabbing a book, going through and finding the answer and getting 100% without knowing any of the information. That is challenging though, because even if you do know the information, it might take you a little while to bring it back up. And so then you don't have enough time to answer all the questions. So that is not so great. This is a little bit better. There will be a time limit, but it'll be just like a typical in-person class, or maybe even a little bit longer. And then, somebody's going to be watching you through the webcam, so that way you can't open up a book or cheat or anything, but you will be able to like think about things and consider like, well, what do I know about this, and work through it and then try to get the right answer that way. So I think that's a little bit more friendly than a timed test, and also more representative of what you actually know. I'm going to end this with a little bit about me, Dr. Jake Patten. My PhD comes from cognitive psychology originally. I graduated at Arizona State University with all of my degrees, my PhD, my master's, my bachelor's. They all came from ASU. And I also went to high school in Arizona. I went to Hamilton High School, so if anybody's representing, let me know. That's pretty cool. Although, we're broadcasting around the world right now, so it's even cooler if you right now live in Bangladesh and you went to Hamilton High School. That's very cool. You should certainly let me know. So one of the things that I'm involved with right now is looking at tetrachromacy. So if you know about trichromacy, this is color vision in the eye. Typical vision is trichromatic, which means you have 3 cones, a red cone, a green cone, and a blue cone. I'm sure if you've taken Psych 101, you know that. And I'm involved with a research group who is looking into people who have 4 cones. It's really interesting. There are, the last time I checked, about 4, and this comes from another group who's working in it, but there are 4 confirmed possible tetrachromats right now. That number could be out of date by a couple of months. The way that they're possible tetrachromats is that they've been genetically tested and they have the gene that's linked with tetrachromacy. That doesn't mean that they are tetrachromatic though, because even though they have the gene, it might not manifest itself in the eye. The cones might not be there. And then maybe the cones are there, but they're not there in sufficient densities to actually produce a different perception. So we know that there are 4 people, right now 4, but there's probably more, who have this gene, but we don't know if it's manifesting itself. And that's what we're trying to figure out is it manifesting itself? How is it manifesting itself? Can we make a test that is cheaper and easier and more accessible than gene sequencing to see who is a tetrachromat? And then dovetailing on that, like what benefit can there be to tetrachromats and to the rest of society from their special site? I actually do a lot of hearing research, although it's not really hearing research. It's more like how does your brain make sense of the auditory information that's coming in. So it's more cognitive. It's hearing related, but it's cognitive. And one of the things that I like to look at, I should say, I like to look at natural regularities. Now, natural regularity is just like 2 things that tend to be correlated in nature. So thinking about, we'll stay on that auditory and sound train, and we'll say that frequency and intensity tend to be correlated. So if you think about a car revving its engine, as it goes from idling to revving, it gets louder, but it also gets higher in pitch. This is true for human voices as well. So if you have someone go from saying hey to yelling hey in anger, like someone stole their bicycle, they will get louder, but they'll also get higher in pitch. We've shown that that's true in regular speech. We've shown that it's true in non-lyrical music, so like scat music or yodeling. In lyrical music, it's actually not true, but that's because there's a different set of constraints at play. So those are natural regularities. And what I'm interested is in finding natural regularities in hearing, but also everywhere. Like, where do natural regularities occur? I think that natural regularities are the building block for perception of the world. So we'll probably talk about some natural regularities through the course of this class. And now that you know what they are, try to think of a few as you go through the first couple lessons, and let me know if you think that you found one in the discussion boards. You can send me an email. We can talk about it on VoiceThread. But those will definitely come up again. So what I want to know from you is, inside this same module there is a map of the world, and you can drop a pin where you are. I don't need to know your like address or anything, so don't put that in there, but just let me know like approximately where you are. Like, I want to know, are you here in Arizona where I am? How many of you are just elsewhere in the United States? How many of you are outside the country but in North America? How many of you are in the Southern Hemisphere? It'll be kind of cool to see. It'll be open for everybody to take a look at too, so you'll be able to see how many of your classmates are where you are. Maybe you'll accidentally end up with a study buddy in South Africa. Who knows? That would be kind of cool. So, and then there's also going to be a discussion board. This is one of the more typical discussion boards that I think we'll have. But introduce yourself if you feel like it. You're not necessarily going to get points for this one, but you might be able to. It would be nice if we could set up like a nice community, so you can get input and help from peers, but also me. So introduce yourself like I did. What's your name? What are your hobbies? What do you do? Because I know a lot of you aren't typical students. You've got a lot of careers. There's a reason why you've gone back to school. Maybe some of you are typical students, and tell us why you decided to take an online class instead of an in-person class. But it'd be nice to get to know you. And then one other thing that I do want you to give me. This will be an easy point. You don't have to say anything about yourself if you don't feel comfortable with it, but I do want to know, what is your favorite line from a movie? And mine is,
Go home, Jake. I'm doing you a favor. Come on, Jake. Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
so let me know what your favorite line is. Again, I know we've got people from around the world, so if it's a movie that isn't like a huge Hollywood blockbuster, that's fine. Like, tell us what movie it is. Tell us, if it's one that you don't think we'll know, tell us what kind of movie it is, what genre it's in. If it doesn't really work super well translated, tell us the idea of it if it's not originally in English. I'm excited about the class. I am really excited to see your responses to these questions. I'm excited to see where you are. And hopefully you have a great class. All right. Good luck.